Welcome to School of PE podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miller, and I'm so glad that you could join me this week. We are going to discuss topics about FE, PE, and SC, and we're also going to answer questions that will help students prepare for their exams. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another riveting episode of the SOPE Weekly Podcast. My name is Chris Miller, and today I have a special guest, Mr. James Avery. Please, Mr. Avery, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would.
Hey guys, James Avery here. Happy to be here, Chris.
Glad to have you. So I see you're an engineer, so can you kind of give us a little bit of a background about you, who you are, and maybe what you kind of do for work, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I've been working in the engineering space for almost 10 years now. I currently work in the construction industry, so I am a key part of the design process, specifically for fire protection. So I got into this about 7 years ago in the design industry, construction and planning and design for buildings, and learned the ropes with fire protection and that's just a key part of all buildings, require that pretty much. So on a day-to-day basis, it's hand in hand involved with the construction process, and it's really a fulfilling career. I really enjoy it, and I wouldn't do anything else.
All right, sounds good. Exciting. I've talked to quite a few civil engineers over the previous weeks, and excited to have my first fire protection engineer. We just got into fire protection as far as exam review courses maybe about 3 years ago. So it's exciting to finally have fire protection engineer in person. So again, thanks for joining us and giving us a little bit of a background of what you do on a daily basis. Can you kind of tell me how you got here? Like, maybe talk about maybe a little bit of your education and the path that you traveled to get to where you are.
Sure. Yeah. So I started on the mechanical path. So I'm a mechanical engineer by degree. Got out of school, was doing some drafting work for a few months at a manufacturing firm. Really wasn't me, and I had an opportunity with a sprinkler company, and they said, "Hey, we need somebody in the design field." And so from there, I just kind of got in depth with learning fire sprinklers, which is indeed a mechanical system. It still uses water. It's all mechanical properties, so I understood it fairly well and could perform the hydraulics, which is what they liked about me. And so, man, from there, I learned more and more about this industry, and it really allowed me to shape my career from there to now, to gaining experience and knowledge where I was, which was at the subcontracting level, working with the guys actually installing that. And then after about 5 years, I transitioned to the design level, so the architect engineer level of design, which is more big idea and less hands-on than the subcontracting level. And that's propelled me to where I am today, which is here with you. I work for a firm doing exactly this, fire protection engineering for Walmart, Best Buy, hospitals, you name it, and I've pretty much done it. So it's awesome. It's great. I enjoy it.
Great. You work some pretty interesting places as well. Everything from a Walmart to Best Buy, pretty cool. So talking about your education, where'd you go to school?
I went to a small school in West Tennessee, Union University. So it's in Jackson, which is directly between Memphis and Nashville.
Oh, very nice. Sometimes the smaller schools are kind of nice to compare to the bigger ones. I went to Ohio State, which is huge. So kind of nice to see someone that maybe got an education at a smaller university. That's fantastic. So another question for you. So did you know from day one that engineering was a path for you, or did you kind of, maybe take a couple of swings at something else and then decide to go down the engineering route?
No, I knew pretty well. I was good at math. I liked math in high school, and my mom was an electrical engineer, and so I was kind of like, well, and I was really interested in what the engineers make after school, and so I was like, hey, this is a win-win-win-win. So I'll choose this over business, maybe. And so yeah, that's from the beginning, and it took me 5 years because I ran against a few classes that needed a couple of tries, like linear algebra or calculus 3, but I said, this is what I'm going to do, and committed to it. And I graduated in 2013. So that feels like a lifetime ago, but, 8 years ago. yeah, I always kind of knew because I like problem solving, so I always kind of knew that this would be the path for me.
Very nice. So you say math, that you said you were good in math. So was that also maybe your favorite subject throughout your college career?
Well, actually, my favorite subject was physics because I'm a math and physics double minor. So
Ah, okay.
I really like the math in application. So when you can use it, when you can start to do things with it that matter, that's what I like. And that's why I like fire sprinklers because, the real math is, hey, this will either put out a fire and save somebody's life or it won't. And so we need to make sure this math is correct and right and applicable. Of course, there's a computer program to do that. So.
So, picking engineering as your route in college is tough enough, a difficult path to go. And then you throw in math and physics. You were just a glutton for punishment through your 5 years in college there.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah, it was. I liked it. Like I said, I went to a smaller school, and these are even tougher classes. So, I mean, there was maybe 8 or 10 of us in a class with a professor, and it was really a unique learning experience to learn that way and to get to ask the questions and be very conversational with your professors and go eat dinner at their house. It was a great
Wow.
experience. Yeah, it was nice. So,
Yeah, sounds like
really enjoyed it.
yeah, it sounds like a different experience that somebody might have had at one of the larger colleges. You don't get that home cooked meal at a professor's house,
There
or
you go. Yeah.
smaller class sizes
Mhm.
allow for, like you said, the more one-on-one conversations, which is helpful, especially in these classes where some of these subjects are just beastly. So
Oh man, yeah, yeah. Again, like linear algebra.
yeah, I probably would have needed more than a couple of attempts on that,
Mm,
and I would have never attempted calculus 3. So
mm.
difficult as it is. So I see that you're also a NIASET licensed. Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. NICET is the National Institute of Certification in Engineering Technologies. Um, so what they do is they take people who work in, say, engineering capacities that maybe didn't go to school in engineering, or people that did, and they give them a technical certification that's coupled with years experience in that field. So part of what I was able to do as working with a subcontractor in the sprinkler design world was to um, test. You set the test and you take the exam to. It's basically a certificate of proficiency in that field. And so I went through that licensure process in my 5 years and working in that field and worked very closely with other guys who maybe didn't have the 4 year engineering degree, maybe had a 2 year drafting certificate, associate's degree or something like that. And then they were able to gain this. And, this is recognized by state authorities and
Hmm.
local jurisdictions as a licensed professional in the design field. So that is a path of licensure, and they have allowances in there for people who did go to college, and you gain some accredited experience, for your degree and things like that. And it's a great way to bring about proficiency within that field and certification within that field. And it's not just applicable to sprinklers either. It goes to fire alarm, fire extinguishers. So it's a broader spreading of certifying body. It's a national one. So yeah, it's that's a great experience. I enjoyed doing that. I got to go to several classes for those licensures, and it was a part of building myself to be ultimately a complete fire protection engineer. With certifications on this side and on this side of the technical and applicable processes.
Very cool. So would you say that maybe not just your college background, but maybe some of your work background too, did that help prepare you for taking the NIASET certification exams?
Yeah, so part of the NICET, that you have to work for a certain amount of time before you can even take the exam. So you learn these things. Yes, you wouldn't necessarily learn them in college. You would learn them in your first 6 months of working as an engineer with a fire sprinkler company, or we can expand it to an electrical company or a HVAC company. Yeah, you learn those, and then you're tested on those. Using your books and your code references like you would have in real life. Yes.
Very nice. So, one of there are many great things about engineering, but one of the things I really like is that there's so many different paths that you can take. You can be a
Yes.
civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, chemical. So, if someone was coming into you today, maybe getting ready to start college and was like, James, I'm just getting ready to start my freshman year. I'm thinking about engineering, but I'm not really sure. What kind of guidance or advice could you give that young person?
Yeah, so I would say, look, if you're comfortable with math, and that doesn't scare you, okay, and you one bite at a time, it's not that big of a deal. I would say, hey, go in as a general engineer. You can actually do that for your first year or two, and then you can get exposure to some electrical classes and some structural classes and some mechanical classes, and heat transfer, and you can then specify your direction in the latter 2 years of your degree. That exists in most engineering colleges, um, especially if you tell your advisors, "Look, I'm just not sure." You'll get a good exposure to that. So that's what I would recommend. I would always recommend mechanical because I'm a hands-on person.
Hmm.
Sometimes electrical is a little difficult for me because I can't see what's happening inside the wire. Um, and mechanical has, in my opinion, a lot more applications down the road. So whether you're talking about HVAC or robotics or material properties or fire protection, for example, mechanical has a big facet of things that maybe electrical is a little more concentrated and specified as a degree. Again, that's just my opinion, but
That's some good advice. So, again, engineering is a tough field, not only just to maybe commit to, because there's a lot of, I mean, the studies are difficult in college, heavy course load, not just heavy course load, but a lot of the courses are very difficult. So sometimes, failures pop up. So what would you recommend, or how would you tell people to maybe overcome some of those failures that you might encounter along the way?
yeah, failures pop up. I mean, I failed multiple classes in my engineering career. Failure is a way to learn, and it's a way to kind of step back and evaluate and say, "Oh, maybe I wasn't doing that the right way." And if you're committed to your goal, well, then that's just you pick yourself back up and you keep on going. Um, don't let the failures bother you. That's just a way to measure yourself and to see what you need to do the next time.
That's some good advice. So, we kind of been chatting here for a few minutes about maybe the heavier stuff about life and the engineering career. So maybe let's get to some of the lighter side. So where are you based out of?
So I'm in Memphis, Tennessee.
Ah, all right. It's good
Home of
home, some
Elvis.
good barbecue, right?
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. And hot weather.
Oh, how is it out there? It's been pretty hot and humid here.
Yeah, it's incredibly hot and incredibly humid both. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I just got back from LA yesterday, and I was out there. It was like 91 degrees, but at least it was
Wow.
dry heat. So I mean,
Wow.
I'd take that dry heat over that humid any day of the week.
Yes.
So what do you enjoy doing out there in Memphis for a little relaxation?
Well, I'm a big outdoor kind of person. I love to get out and play some golf. Spend time in the pool. My parents have a pool. I love to swim. Fishing, even hunting. I love to get outside. I have a 1-year-old daughter, so me and my wife.
Huh,
That's another full time job that me and my wife both have.
I believe it.
And we enjoy that, and I love that part of life a whole lot. And I mean, I love to grill. I love to cook good food, and man, that can take. You can spend all day doing that. Um,
So you more of a steak fan or a ribs fan?
I have to pick steak if you made me choose. Now we had some good ribs on Fourth of July, and they were great, but yeah, I'd have to pick steak. Yeah, I'd have to go
Uh,
with steak.
that's a good choice. It's a good choice. So you said you like to do some golfing. Just recently as a group here, we went out to a Top Golf. I don't know if you ever heard of a place like that where you,
Yeah,
yeah. So it gets a little competitive. I learned that golfing's not that easy. You figure the ball's not moving, it should be pretty easy to swing and hit, but wow, it is not an easy sport at all.
yeah, it's a challenge, that's for sure. Yeah, I made the mistake of falling in love with golf about 10 years ago, and now I'm a hopeless addict to the game and always getting better. And yeah, it's kind of one of those things. You can always get better. You can always get better.
I learned the drawback about going to golf with an engineer is, man, they measure velocity, they measure angles. I tell you, I just close the eyes and swing, but engineers don't do that even when they're golfing. So it was quite an experience for sure. Um, so what motivates you on a daily basis? What gets you through the day?
Well, Chris, part of what I kind of hinted at earlier, with fire protection, it's all about. I mean, you're saving people's lives. You're keeping people safe in a hospital that can't get up and get out of bed, or a nursing home that can't run out the door when the fire alarm goes off. You're actually protecting those people from, but smoke inhalation or being caught on a fire. And man, that excites me. That makes me passionate. There's multiple levels of it, not just sprinklers, but barriers and separations and fireproof materials, and there's always new improvements. Um, this is an industry that's always growing and changing. So I love seeing what's new out there, what people my age, millennials are getting into this workforce and shaping it with our views and our processes, and it's really becoming a special thing as time goes on, and we get more technologically advanced with fire alarm technology and capability, smoke detector, all this stuff. Just the new competitive edge of it. It's like every day there's a new challenge. I really enjoy it, and it's never the same thing once. It's always a different. Two hospitals. They're not exactly the same. There's different ins
Right.
and outs. There's different ups and downs. And I don't know. I'm just passionate about it. That's essentially what gets me going.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not passionate about what you do, it makes it hard to get through the day.
That's
And
exactly
just
right.
and just talking to you, I can see the passion and the excitement when you're talking about what you do, and you can tell that you truly have a joy for it. So, speaking about technology, I'm sure it plays a pretty big part in what you do every day as well. So, what are some of I guess, the biggest maybe advances that you've seen in your spectrum, let's say from today compared to, 5, 6 years ago?
Okay. One of the biggest ones that I see that I'm getting really excited about, it's this program that's called Very Early Smoke Detection. So it imagine like a hospital that's got thousands of nodes essentially that are sampling the air system all at once, and they can detect the carbon from smoke much faster than a smoke detector ever could, or a sprinkler heat element ever could, and almost dispatch a person with a fire extinguisher to that location
Oh,
even
wow.
before the smoke detector's going off, minutes before. And it's all tied into a central processing unit, all, smart, intelligent system. Um, that's really what I get excited about the most, because that's a new thing that, especially here, and I'm in the Southeast, so you don't see a lot of that. We got a lot of older buildings. Um, that's really going to change the face of how we think about smoke detection and firefighting. And I would love to put firefighter guys out of business, because those guys are risking their lives going in there.
Right.
Let's detect the fire when it's just a spark, and then have something that takes care of it right then and there. So there is that. There are drone based fire extinguishers that can thermally target a flame and then circle around
Wow.
it. Yeah, it's incredible. There's incredible
Yeah.
stuff coming in this industry is going to change the way we even think about firefighting as a whole. So I'm really excited to see that. But the smoke detection is my thing, because actually that's what kills more people than fire ever does, is breathing smoke. That and suffocating. That's actually the number one killer. So as soon as you can detect that, you can immediately start, sucking the air out of there, moving the people out of that place, and the faster, the better.
Agree. No, that's interesting. I can't imagine what a drone would be like that are fighting fires. That's pretty cool. So, a little while ago, you mentioned that it's more than just sprinkler systems, right? It's about the barrier and the separation. Can you go a little bit more in detail what you mean, about the barrier and the separation?
Yeah, so a sprinkler system is what's known as an active fire protection system. There are passive fire protection systems that involve, firewalls and flame retardant sheetrock, and basically everything we build stuff with today. Houses, a lot of commercial buildings are built with steel, so they can even burn on the inside. Flame retardant sheetrock, flame retardant ceilings, all of those are passive based fire protection systems to prevent essentially flame spread from coming out of a room. So, and especially in, like hospitals or schools, the corridor is protected even by another insulated wall. That way, say a fire starts in a room, it can't spread into the corridor, because that's how people get out. So passive systems essentially kind of corner the fire off to allow for exit or egress from the building, to keep people safe, and to get people out of the building so the firefighters can come in and finish the fire off.
Wow, that's pretty neat. So, what kind of planning goes into, like, you got a place that you're installing a sprinkler system. So what are some of the key components they're looking in to see what kind of design they're going to utilize for that particular building?
So a lot of that depends on what we're doing inside the building. So, you know, um, a government building that's full of papers and documents in a library sense is going to have a different rating than, say, you know, an auditorium full of people without a lot of paper documents versus a place where we're storing washers and dryers. That's going to have even a different. So it's all based on what we call the occupancy.
Mhm.
And of course, that's defined by code and by NFPA 13 and things like that. It's all based around the occupancy and the use of the building. And especially what's key is the storage. So whatever you're storing, especially, hey, James, I want to store cans of gasoline 50 feet high in my building. I'm like, well, that's not a good idea, but here's what we can do to, and you have to do that. There are people who do store cans of oil in
Yeah,
buildings. Like,
true.
it's just, yeah, you have to do that. So even that's a whole nother level of fire protection in that sense.
Well,
So
as I mentioned earlier, I deal with a lot of civil engineers, and occasionally I come across a mechanical engineer. But I'm telling you, this fire protection is fascinating. Um,
it's a whole
it's
new
like,
world, man.
yeah, it's like a part of engineering. I really guess, I mean, it's there, but you just didn't know what the detail or what it entailed. It's pretty neat, man. Uh, like every day is probably a lot different than the day before, it seems like. So, and
That's
then
what excited me about this industry. You know, as a mechanical engineer, I hadn't even learned about this industry or thought about this industry, and I was contacted by at the very beginning. Hey, do you want to come work for this sprinkler company? I said, sprinklers, like lawn sprinklers? They're like, no, like fire sprinklers, like in the ceiling. I was like, oh, I guess yeah, they're up there. I never really thought about that, but yeah, man, it is a whole depth of knowledge you don't even think about.
no, I
Yeah,
agree. Like you said, the sprinkler systems that you see up in the ceiling, I usually look up. I'm like, okay, there's one there. I hope I never see it go off. But I figure, okay, they just stick one here, stick one there. But just kind of listening to you talk the last few minutes about all the planning and what's involved in implementing or putting them in there, it's exciting. Um, it makes I could listen to you all day just hearing about maybe the different aspects of fire protection. Just didn't know there was so much involved.
yeah, it's really in depth. It's really in depth. I could go on for hours, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like reading a book. It's great. So, for the past, I'd say year and a half, COVID's been affecting everyone everywhere as we're slowly starting to come out of it in, a lot of different places across the globe. How would you say that COVID has affected you as an engineer?
Well, so my entire working mentality and philosophy has changed with COVID because I went from an office to working at home, and so I went to working at home in the early spring, March of 2020, and I'm still at home now, as you can tell, um, and so it has changed. Not only that, I've actually transitioned jobs while being at home to another at-home job that is going to be at home for like that's the whole goal now. So it has totally changed my philosophy on where I need to be to do good work actually. And it's let me see that, hey, there's a lot that we can do in a remote sense with each other, that maybe we didn't think about before. Maybe this has forced us into using different modes of communication that maybe we didn't rely on before. So it's definitely changed that for me. The adjustment working from home at first was tough, obviously, but now it's actually, I think, what I prefer, with some meetings in person and some, a couple of days going to have lunch with a client or meeting for a building review or something like that. But the focus time at home is really gone up and improved my quality of work, being at home. Now, it's made things difficult on the sharing of information because you can't just go hand a roll of paper drawings to somebody anymore. You kind of have to
Right.
figure that out and see how that's going to work. And so that's opened up all these new cobwebs and spider webs of, okay, well, what software does the client have, and what are we using is what we have compatible with what they're, so that has actually been a learning curve, at least for me, is yeah, it's new and it's great, but there are still some flaws in some of these forms of communication that are kind of tricky, you know.
No, that's well said. I agree. I think a lot of industries have come to the realization that a lot of stuff can be done from home. A learning process, definitely, or learning curve, I should say. So if I were to say go back in time 3 years ago, and someone was like, "Hey, James, do you think what you do today can be done from home?" What would you have said 3 years ago?
Now, so I'm a millennial. So 3 years ago, I would have said, yeah, we can do that. I know we can. I've seen it work. Uh, I'm not the person you'd have to worry about. It's these people over here. Um, but I would have been pro that. Now, never to the extent of a whole year at home only. Now, I never could have imagined what that would have been like, which is kind of, let everybody take a step back and see how important being in person is. Um, but I'm for it. I think it's good. I think it's a better work life balance in that sense, and um, it allows for some maybe personality in your home office that you couldn't get in your at work office. You know.
Sounds good. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I could be right, I could be wrong, but let's see. So when you're getting ready to install a sprinkler system in, let's say, a Best Buy, I'm assuming you'd probably have to do a walkthrough. You'd have
I'm
to do
sorry.
no, sorry. So let's say you're going to do a sprinkler system install in a Best Buy new store opening up. I would assume a walkthrough would have to be done to kind of scope out the area to see what maybe design or what needs to be used for that particular building. How do you guys deal with that now that maybe you're not going into these locations?
Well, so a lot of times what we can do, especially for a new building, that's the benefit is we can look at the architecture and look at what they have on their plans and base our design off of that. And so that's what our industry will afford is, we can base our design on what they've got on paper for now, and then verify that once it comes in person. So I've been involved with, very scheduled out job sites. So it's like only this team can come today, and then only this team can come today, or even virtual verification where they've taken, we've had a lot of pictures to review of and do our best when it comes to that. Um, but yeah, a lot of it is really based on what the plans are, what the original plans that the owner and the architect, and say Best Buy being the owner, have set out and say this is the intent, and so we can really start our process based on that part.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, as our time is slowly coming to an end here for the day, I just want to see if there's any advice or last minute thoughts you want to share with the audience.
I'll give you this advice, especially if you're considering engineering. It's a tough field. The math is going to be hard, but it's not impossible. You can do anything you set your mind to, and zoomed out, it looks like a big giant mess, but zoomed in, you do one step at a time, and you can accomplish that goal and have a successful, fulfilling career in engineering. Just like me, I don't think about school anymore. It's done. It's in the past. It doesn't matter what grades I made. I'm done.
It's true. No, that's great advice. Always thinking towards the future. I've had a pleasure speaking with you today, learning about the ins and outs of fire protection. I'd love to have you back again because I'm sure there's a lot of other aspects of fire protection that we didn't even touch on today. So I'd love to have you back. I'm sure the audience would like to hear more about the fire protection because, like I mentioned earlier, I've been talking to a lot of civil engineers, and it's nice to kind of go off the beaten path. I want to say beaten path, but go down a different road and talk to somebody from a totally different discipline than civil. So again, James, I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week, and to the rest of you, have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. Pleasure being here.
Thanks, James.